Okay. Okay, so you and I have actually been working together for a couple of months.
Uh-huh.
We first met, you had all this baggage around perfectionism, right? Wasn't that kind of where, if we really just break it down, it's perfectionism
Totally.
and more so competitivism, being better than, being the best.
Yeah.
And you had issues with your mom who's passed away, and that was a big part of it. She competed with you.
Mm-hmm.
And you, the funny thing is when people come to me for the protocol, they never really think that they're going to get all this other stuff.
Surprise, surprise.
And all of a sudden it's like, bam! This is what we're going to deal with. You're going to deal with your mother. And it made a big impact for you to face all of that, to resolve it, to forgive yourself moving forward. And then we had you practice, right? And you were a vegan,
Mm-hmm.
like a full vegan, right?
Yeah, vegan vegetarian.
Vegan vegetarian, and you were an expert vegan vegetarian. And we discussed like your identity with food, your identity, right? The identity with all this stuff. Then you went into practice, and I said, if you're craving meat, I want you to go get some meat.
Yeah, and I did. It was great.
And you did, and it was great. Was it scary for you to really go into that, to break the identity? Because basically, to listen to your body, you had to let go of all those rules and beliefs around, eating animal. Although you did keep your, what's the word? You did keep your beliefs around, being humane towards animals
Yeah, completely. And
as
also,
best as possible, except for when you'd go to like fast food or whatever.
well, that I really wouldn't do. I mean, I do.
Okay.
There's some places that I won't go.
Good. So
And
you
but
kept some of your boundaries in terms of those beliefs, but when it came to your identity, you were willing to let them go.
Right.
Would you say the challenge of that was hard to take until you made the choice to do it?
Yeah.
Once you made the choice with an open mind, being able to say, look, I'm craving chicken. Chicken sounds super good to me. How has that changed your relationship with protein, with meat, animal product?
Well, I have to say that it's still hard. I mean, I always pray to it, but
Yes.
I have my own thing, and it is hard to there's certain things that I still won't eat. I still won't eat lamb. I don't think I would ever eat veal.
That's okay.
Yeah. So, and I've also learned what my body is sensitive to. Like, I think that my body is sensitive to eggs. It doesn't really like eggs.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was going through that transition, I would sometimes eat an egg, but I knew when I was eating it that my body didn't like it, which was very interesting. And this whole protocol, the past 30 days, it's interesting because I learned not to let my hunger get crazy.
Yeah,
But
isn't that kind of important?
yeah, but last night after I had dinner, I was in my little bed, and I realized that I had to go off of it because the hunger, I could feel it, and it was going to get crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was really hungry, and like I woke up hungry.
Yeah, it's kind of a dangerous zone.
Yeah, it's a dangerous zone. And so, but what it really taught me was, I mean, it's just been like, it taught me to take so much out of my diet and to feel good, really good, eating so clean. And, it's not that I want so much more food. It's like maybe I just want like 2 more shrimps, instead of the 4 that I have or whatever. It's not
Mm-hmm.
a massive amounts of food. It's not having 10 ounces of food. It's really probably having 4 or maybe 5.
Or whatever it is, however
Yeah.
much it takes, whether it's 10 ounces or 6 ounces, it doesn't really matter, does it?
Exactly. But it's so interesting to sort of go down that path and see and like what vegetables like I like and what, I love broccoli. I was so glad I could eat broccoli. It's so delicious. I don't really love fennel, but I ate it once.
Yeah.
I have this like love affair with celery. I don't know I crave celery. I don't know what's in celery, but
I don't know. I think it's the crunch. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the act of, I don't know. For me, I like celery
salt
too.
on it. Oh, so good.
It's really good with cream cheese and capers
Oh my God.
or peanut butter.
Yeah, peanut butter too. I love
Are you
peanut butter.
starting to have fantasies about food?
Last night I was having
Okay,
serious.
that's totally normal, by the way. That's brain. It's not just, it's not emotional. You're actually dealing with some brain stuff. The need for diverse in narcotic drive, your brain really does need dopamine from food. It needs more. It needs more.
Yeah.
And right now, your brain isn't probably stable. You don't have enough body fat to send the signal of
Wait, hold on.
satiation.
I'm on a call. Okay, bye. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so my point initially was basically to ask, did you feel that the practice, and you took like a month. I remember I was like, take at least a week or two. You were ready to jump into the protocol. You did the practice and then extended it
Yeah.
yourself. You actually said, I got to do this. I'm going to do this a couple more weeks. So you did over a month of practice. Did that help you with this round?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yeah, it sets you up for it, but what really, what happened, what the best part, and I think I said this last time too, was I reread your book when I started this protocol, and it made the most sense. So when I was in it, yeah, it made sense to me, and when I was practicing, yes, I thought that it had made sense, but when I read your book, I could go that much deeper when I was starting, and then it really made sense.
Yeah, I found that people, the
Sense
first
of all-
time they read the book, it's just boring and redundant. And you get a grasp of the science, don't you agree? And then as you read it again, and as you read it after the practice, don't you think that after you did the practice, that, I mean, just how you did it, the line of how you did it, it equally helped to do the practice as it did to read it after the practice. And now that you've done the protocol, do you think that getting the exposure to the leniency in the eating and the freedom to eat anything you want, I want you to think about how that has impacted how you feel about transitioning into this next phase.
Yeah, I mean, well, in the next phase, you can't eat whatever you want.
No, but do you have as much fear as you did in your, you've done the protocol more than once here.
Yeah.
And think about your past rounds, the transition into this next phase, right? Off the HCG.
Different.
It's very different, isn't it? Don't you agree, or do you feel that the protocol has made an impact for you in your...
Huge impact. And it's taught me how I feel when I eat food. And like the thing about the practice before was when I ate something that I wasn't hungry for, or let's say if I just ate a cookie for emotion or whatever, I realized like how that made me feel versus like being on a protocol, you really have to deal with everything. So it's like what I like about the protocol is that you have to face everything, which I love. Like,
Yeah.
When you're practicing, you can squirm a little bit here or there.
Mm-hmm.
And
But you're getting the leniency you need to not binge.
Yeah, exactly. And this, like I have no desire to binge now. I think probably before I wanted to binge, like I have no desire to binge.
Yeah.
And when I
Well, yet, remember the protocol is really safe. The decision is made for you. Right? A lot of people get a false sense of confidence during the protocol. I'm not saying yours is false, but I just want to make sure that you're aware that the way you feel right now within the protocol means is very different when you don't have the same structure and the same protection from the choice being made for you.
But isn't that protection something that I have to build?
Yes, I would agree.
Myself.
Totally. So when someone says, I feel so much more confident now, I always have to say, hold on. The feeling you may have is relative to the environment you're in.
Yeah.
What we want you to do is to feel the way you do now in a very difficult environment.
Yeah.
And it takes you going into those environments to get a sense of that. But the more confidence you have now, honestly, if you can, and at this point, I usually ask each patient to visualize the worst case scenario and get a sense of what that would feel like. Have use the area of the brain that has foresight.
Yeah.
And practice in your mind. What's it going to feel like traveling? What's it going to feel like when you don't have access to food? When you're going to have to trust airplane food? When you're out in public and you're with a group of people and you don't want to, what's it going to feel like to be under peer pressure or fear of what people think about you? Can you That's the stuff I want you to start really getting into your forefront of your head, and be willing to navigate in that. And just know that the feeling you have now, it might change in a different situation.
Well,
Who
I
knows?
thought that traveling with it, I traveled with it 2 weeks ago. I got on the plane and brought my own food.
Yes.
But I found that, like, being on the protocol, like when I would have to go out at night, like, sometimes it was difficult. I would just eat before, because if I had to go to like a set something.
Were you hungry when you ate before, or did you eat before to prevent hunger?
Well, probably a little bit of both.
Okay, that's dysfunctional.
Yeah.
I hate to tell you that, but if you're sensitive hormonally, not everybody is this sensitive, but if you have hormonal sensitivity, that would have caused weight gain. And the protocol probably caused a stall. I understand the thinking behind let's eat beforehand so I don't get hungry, but that comes with some risk.
Yeah, but I was hungry. I mean, it wasn't like I get hungry in the afternoon. That's when I get hungry. So let's say if I have to go out late, I would always have just something because I get hungry.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always hungry.
Okay, well that's functional.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're actually hungry, but I just want to make note that in the future that you don't say, well, I might get hungry and I can't eat, so I'm going to eat now to prevent hunger. There's a lot of people that have a lot of problems hormonally because of that.
Yeah.
So the better thing might be to, excuse me, pack food or something that is acceptable, like liquid drink. That's why I typically recommend, if it works for you, the Vitamin Water Zero. It does have stevia, but it's got nutrients. The brain will recognize it as a food, and it will just kind of tide you over. That might be something. So what I basically am saying is, hey, okay, if you did that on a protocol, trust me, you're going to think that that's okay off the protocol, and it might be a sticky spot for you, especially if you're menopausal or have hormonal sensitivity or inflammation. My suggestion would be to try to avoid eating without hunger, to avoid hunger.
Yeah, exactly.
And have a solution that will work if you can, like a liquid. Those protein shakes, those, for me, have come in handy.
Well,
So
I
anyways.
think that, but now being off the protocol, like when I'm in a situation, if I'm not hungry, I don't have to eat before I go to something. And I think I can eat around it. On the protocol, you have to be so careful with no oil, no this, no that. Sometimes, like I can always like kind of get a salad or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it takes like that part of the pressure off of it.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah, and you're not worried, oh my God, did they poach the shrimp in olive oil or something, you know?
Yeah, I would totally agree with you there. See, that's a good sign. Some people would be freaking out right now with the fact that they don't have those controls because the protocol feels like a protective blanket.
Yeah.
The fact that you're saying, oh, it's so much easier because I don't have to worry about the oils. I can just trust my body, right?
Yeah.
That is what practice did for you. Most people don't recognize that the practice makes this so much easier because you have so much trust and confidence in your body.
Right, and I think I said the other part earlier because, like, I'll generally have lunch when I'm hungry. Like, in the morning when I get, sometimes I'll have, like, an apple at, I don't know, late morning when I'm hungry, and I'll have a crackle when I'm hungry because, like, the past couple of days that just the apple doesn't do it. Then I'll have lunch when I'm hungry, generally about 1:32, 2:30. But then at, like, 4:30, like, I'm dying for that orange. So I'll have an orange at 4:30. And then by 5:30 or 6, I want my dinner.
Yeah.
So it's kind of always like that. Like tonight, I mean, I have to go out tonight, and I know I'm going to be hungry at 5:30 or 6, especially when it's so cold. I get hungry. Mm-hmm. But my body just gets hungry in the afternoon. So, but I think it makes it just, I don't have to stress so much about, the food in this part of the.
Do you understand what that does?
Huh?
The less stress, you have less stress at this point because of all that practice. You have more confidence because of the practice. Do you understand the significance of that with your behavior?
Yeah, it's huge.
It is like so important because if you don't have confidence in your body, what would you be doing right now?
Freaking out.
You would be freaking out and asking for a diet plan.
Yeah, and the funny
How
thing
many
is
grams
like,
should I be eating? What time should I have breakfast? You would be wanting specific a caloric. Tell me how many calories I can eat. Right? You're gonna be. Do you see what I'm saying? Did you do
so
that with your previous rounds?
yeah, it was a nervous wreck, and that I'm not nervous about. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how this is going to go, and I look forward to it. It's nice to have the chains off. It's nice, and the thing is that I can also give myself permission. Like I don't have any, like before I had all these things from like the stuff I'd read on the protocol, like you have to do this, this, and this. Like, excuse me, now I don't have any. I don't have any rules for myself, except for the two obvious ones that they say and you've said, but.
Yeah.
Other than that,
Well,
depends what I want, I mean, I was going to ask you, can you eat jicama on this phase that I'm going into? Okay.
yes, you can. Be very, just everything that you put in your mouth, you need to be conscious of how your body's responding. So here's what I want to make sure you understand at this point. Hormonally, you're in a different place than you were when you did your practice. So you cannot use yes, your practice gave you confidence to know that you can trust your body. But now that you've lost body fat, you've lost your body's endocrine regulating system is not in the same spot. Your sensitivity to food is different, and it's going to be changing every single week for about a month. So when you say, can I have jicama? Well, I want you to, because I'm not going to say, you cannot go above a certain amount. I'm going to say, yes, you can. It's really important that you eat it with fat.
Okay.
And that
Starch?
It does have some starch in it, yes. It's a lot of water. Jicama's got a ton of water. But yeah, it does have starch in it.
Okay.
Make sure you're eating it with like guacamole.
Okay.
So I wouldn't necessarily start jicama at the beginning. Maybe wait until the second week or third week when you're starting to eat a more diverse amount of fats.
Okay.
The most important part of this phase, the second phase, or what people around the internet call P3, is the introduction of fat. And we want it to be significant. After that first week, if you just eat a bunch of fat in the next couple of days, you're going to have issues.
Be sick as a dog.
You're going to be sick as a dog. Your stomach isn't used to digesting and emulsifying fat. If you eat too fast and eat too much, okay, there's too fast, too much, don't chew enough. If you don't do the pre-digestive work in the mouth, the fat is going to hit your stomach, and it's not going to be very efficient or effective at digesting it right now. It's kind of slow to respond. What will happen is not only will you have stomach upset, but you are at risk for it dumping into the small intestines. That is where your pancreas, all of those other organs are a big part of the gallbladder, big part of digestion. If the food isn't in a position to where it's easy for those organs to help out in the nutrition stuff, it's going to cause inflammation of those organs, and man, it does not feel good.
So
pancreatitis and dumping syndrome, not good. So you need to be slow.
Like every day, it's basically the first week and a half is the same diet with just adding a little olive oil, maybe adding some salmon.
Yes, I would say and it depends on your body, but I would say in general, the first 4 to 5 days, not a week and a half. The first, because what you've got to be balancing out here is not just the digestive response to the food and the addition of fats and the diversity of different types of fats. You also have to make sure you're getting enough hormonal stimulus from those fats that you're not starving yourself. If you don't get enough fat, you'll feel starving. So we see this a lot with people who want to just keep on eating the protocol foods because they feel safe there and they want to eat the protocol foods for the rest of their life because they think that that's actually healthy. It's not. You know what I mean? Like, they don't add the fats out of fear. Yeah. They tend to binge because they're literally starving and they're starving out of fear, which makes your brain prime to binge. So we want to make sure you add the fats slowly but aggressively enough that you don't starve.
So basically, I could start with like a teaspoon and see how that feels.
I don't recommend you use any type of measurements.
No, but you know what I'm saying? Just a little, I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay, you're quantifying. Other people out there are going to hear a teaspoon and they're going to go, oh, goody, a diet.
No.
Tell me how much okay, a teaspoon. Does that make sense?
I use that, but I mean, it's like I would put a little drizzle and see how that goes at lunch. And then if
Yeah,
I'm
and
still-
chew it and taste it. I mean, it's going to be delicious. You don't want to just swallow that down.
Yeah. And
So coconut oil, olives, like the actual olive.
Uh-huh.
And I like the idea of this being, something too. I encourage people to observe different types of, individual fats before we do a combination. That way you really get an understanding of how your body's responding to it.
So don't put salad dressing with an avocado.
To start, but then then you can mix it. Once you understand your body's response to avocado and you understand it with other things, go ahead. So you can see it can change very quickly. It can be aggressively changed as you start. So start with olive oil, avocado, coconut oil. Have a fattier cut of meat. Some people like eggs. Eggs don't work for you, but an egg is a good starting point with the yolk. We want to make sure people aren't taking the yolk out. The yolk is actually extremely important nutritionally. I mean, so you can see eventually you're going to say, okay, I want to try dairy. Let's try some goat cheese.
What about like nuts? What about like, a dozen nuts?
No, I'm not going to stop with the dozen nuts. You sound like a dieter.
I don't mean to sound like a diet, but like it's like a handful of nuts or something.
Sure, or whatever. Yes, you can do some nuts. Chew it really well, and then before you go to nut butter. Does that make sense? So if you're going to do almond butter, you need to start with a real almond first, and chew it and chew it and chew it.
And what about like fresh coconut, little pieces of coconut?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. You should be getting really, really excited.
I am excited.
So start with, those cooking oils. That's a quick one. Then get into some nuts. That's another quick one. Get into the, and then maybe just introduce some dairy. See how your body does with that. And once you've got those like major fat sources.
I'm not great with dairy.
Okay. Have you split it up with, can you do butter?
Yeah, I can do butter and.
Okay. Can you do cream? Okay, so cream, so you know your body well enough at this point but don't be afraid of those. You have to listen to the body. If your body's like, oh, that makes my stomach, eliminate it.
Yeah,
notice how that's not diety. That is like actual practical, oh my gosh, this is not working well with my body. Who gives a shit what your weight is? I don't care if it's holding fluid. Listen to the kinesthetic sense of the body, right?
Yeah, like I've never been good with like that yogurt, like that.
Like Greek yogurt. Some people, it really does well for them. So you got it. This is so personalized, right? This is such an important part of this process too, because you are relearning your body's hormonal state as of today. You've done this before. You've done this before with the practice. But at this point, it's not jumping into all the sorts of foods and then whittling it down. You're actually starting from where you're at clean now and then making sure that in the end, you have a huge variety of choices that are very taking your body into account.
Okay.
So it's like a perfect balance between pleasure and function.
And let's say if I want a glass of wine or a glass of champagne, I can have one?
Yeah, start with, do you like red?
Yeah.
Give yourself a week before you add that alcohol, because alcohol is a food and it does affect your metabolism. Okay. But if you're conscious about it, and it's something you want to integrate in your life, that's what you should do.
Okay.
Be aware of, how you be aware of the role that wine is playing. I love red wine. It is.
Yeah, I'm not a big drinker. I mean, I don't slop down.
Yeah, so it's just social for you.
Yeah, and if I want
that's easy.
And the funny thing is then when I I generally, if I'm at dinner and I have a glass of wine, I'll drink, the first couple of sips are always the best. And then I'm like, ugh, I don't want that.
Yeah, you've got, okay, that's a sign that you listening to your body. Most
Yeah.
people don't do that. They'll have a couple sips and it'll change taste to them and they'll just drink the whole thing because they want the euphoria of the alcohol. So they don't listen to the body. So they don't have the
Right,
ability to say it isn't all or nothing. If you listen to your body, it'll give you the cutoff point.
Yeah. And
That's
I remember when I
amazing.
said that to you, when I was practicing, I was like, oh my God, I saw that steak and I thought I was going to eat the whole thing. I had 2 bites. I was like, okay, that's good.
Isn't that great? Yeah, so I'm excited for you. So do not weigh yourself.
I haven't.
Yeah, don't weigh yourself during the transition.
I won't.
Although as your body's going through the shift, you're probably going to retain fluid. A lot of people do, most people do. It's a natural thing. You shouldn't be afraid of it, and it shouldn't be something that you find is a detriment. Holding fluid is a very important part of the human body's way to protect itself. And it's going to happen just by the fact that your stomach is being taxed to digest fats. And just to exposure to the diversity of food. So once your stomach has adapted, it's very important you are aggressive in diversifying your food. Okay? Expect your bowels to have issues. You might have some constipation. You're going to have diarrhea. It's pretty much the same thing you've experienced on the protocol, but it's a little bit more intense. Your sensitivity to caffeine is going to change. You just need to be adapting and going with your body at the rate your body's adjusting to it, okay?
It's funny. I don't drink coffee,
Uh-huh.
and I'll drink tea. But there's this iced tea that I have been craving, and I had it like 2 weeks ago, and it doesn't have any sugar in it.
Yeah.
And it's so funny, and I always wonder what are in these things that you want.
Yeah. So you can keep on doing the tea. You don't have to stop that.
Yeah.
What else? This is a very common point too with people who are very diet narcotic driven. They'll come to this point and say, "Ooh, I finished," and they're gonna think, "I really cannot wait to add the sweets in." So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna justify the excessive abuse of stevia without thinking there's any hormonal ramifications to that.
I think stevia is the worst.
Well, for you. And that's fine.
There's a big reaction to it. Like, there's a big reaction. I always have had a big reaction to stevia.
Then don't do it. You might have
No.
you might have an allergy to.
If I have to cook with sugar, I'll use coconut sugar.
Okay, whatever works for you. Whatever works for you. I'm just saying, be careful. A lot of people at this point, your cravings are going up. Your need is going up for dopamine. That's your brain is telling you, okay? Make sure you're getting those pleasures through the fat by being present with them, chewing slowly, allowing yourself to really observe how the fat is affecting your palate. The wine, I think, is also important as long as you're conscious of your body's response to it. So I guess in a big picture, if you take this next phase, the next 3, maybe even 4 weeks, depending on how you feel you're progressing in the introduction of fat, I would love to call this phase the fat phase, where you're eating 40 to 50% fat after the first week. Now, that doesn't mean you're quantifying it. You shouldn't be looking at it and going, okay, I have to do exactly what she said. You're to listen to your body, okay?
No, this just gives you a roadmap.
Well, it's taking baby steps. It's taking a baby step towards where you were before this round, which is the open access to anything relative to the body's needs. So after you have the introduction of fats and you're still eating your fruits and vegetables, so you are getting carbohydrates, okay? What we're essentially doing is getting you ready for starches. Can you have potatoes? How do you like potatoes once you add the fat? Right? How would you do with a taco? Can you have sushi, where you're trying to get a variety of foods and a variety of stimulus to the brain, the narcotic area of the brain? You don't want your brain to associate to only one narcotic response. We want you to have a variety of pleasures with the food within the means of your body's, what your body feels good with.
Okay. And I can start exercising again too.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you could have been exercising this whole time, but I don't recommend it if you haven't been exercising or if you don't feel good enough to exercise. I mean, you've been sick, so
Yeah.
so the exercise is also important. We do not, some people think, oh, I'm going to all of a sudden kick up my exercise. Don't do it. Only listen to your body's energy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't start weightlifting for a couple of weeks. You're not getting enough protein, and you're just the total amount of food you're eating isn't adequate for a child. And it's going to take about a week to a week and a half for your food and your hunger to be substantial enough to merit eating more protein. So don't be doing any weight-bearing exercise for a couple of weeks.
I think that's where I made my mistake. Last time I did this a few years ago was I didn't add the fats, because it kind of says add the calories here. And I remember, like in the afternoon, I must have eaten a pound of fish because I was so hungry. And nothing would satiate me. It was the worst feeling.
Remember what I said earlier about not getting enough fat and you're starving?
Yeah.
Because you're not getting enough hormonal stimulus.
Yeah.
It's not about calories. This whole calorie thing really ruins a lot of people's thinking.
Well, that's what started to make sense with me when I started practicing, was that when you add a little fat, like my food intake went down because I didn't need that much food. And my body melted off. Mm-hmm. It melted off, it just kind of took its shape that it wanted to take, which was amazing.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
Anything else I want to cover for you transitioning?
So it's 72
You can add
hours.
fish oil or krill oil supplement at this point. Give yourself a couple days. You can add those if you take fish oil or krill oil. Okay.
And I can use regular cream
Yes.
today. Okay, so as of Thursday, I can use regular cream and stuff.
Slather it on. Yes.
72 hours, right?
Yeah. Are you on injections? Okay. And you took one today? Mm-hmm. And you're done?
Done.
Okay, so you still have a full 24 hours, and then you, after that, still have 48 hours. So 72 hours, yes, from that last injection. Here's how I have people transition out. So today you're going to follow Dr. Simeon's limitations, eating to hunger.
Right.
Tomorrow you're going to follow Dr. Simeon's food limitations, eating to hunger. The following day you're going to follow Dr. Simeon's food limitations to hunger. Now, keeping in mind that you're more than likely going to need to eat far more than the 500 calorie allotment, the 2 proteins. You're probably going to go 3 proteins or 3 vegetables. You're going to be eating more than the 2, 2, 2, and 2.
When? Tomorrow and the next
Who
day?
knows? Your body will tell you. You can't tell me. I can't tell you when that's going to happen.
Okay, so I don't have to. So if I'm hungry tomorrow, I can have an extra orange.
Yeah, that's the way it should have been this whole time. However, you know that, right? If you're hungry, you're supposed to eat.
Well, I did, but sometimes
Perfect.
last night I was hungry after I ate everything, and
And those are, you're allowed to eat more. That's the beauty of the mind-body method, is you're listening to your body. So there'll be days you eat less and days you eat more.
Last night when I was ready to eat the dog, yeah, it has been.
You're supposed to eat. If you don't listen to those messages, you're starving your body. You're literally suppressing the thyroid. You're going through all of that hormonal stuff I describe in Weight Loss Apocalypse, which is starvation. So whether you're on HCG or not. If you don't listen to that, so you're going to continue, but so expect to have more hunger after a couple of days. Although it's not still going to take very much, you're still going to have hunger. On the night of that 3rd day, you are allowed to add a fat. So maybe you start with
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So Wednesday night, I can add a fat?
Yes. No, Wednesday night. Add a singular fat. I would suggest olive oil or coconut oil.
Okay.
And don't and use what you need, okay? But help your stomach. The whole point of that evening fat introduction is to give your body all night to figure it out.
Okay.
Okay? And
So that's before 72 hours.
Yes, it is that night.
Okay. So then that morning after I ate that fat, that's the 72 hours.
You got it. So that is yes. So that morning, you can legitimately say, this is the beginning of the next phase. This is the morning of. So you wake up, you have your tea, you wait till you're hungry. You have a celery with maybe a little bit of smoked salmon or raw salmon. Who cares?
Okay. So then I take out the crackers, no more of the Wassa crackers.
Unless you have that plummet of blood sugar, if you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry, I could eat my arm off, I need something immediately, that impending urgency.
Yeah.
If you feel that way, it's important you get something that will match that signal.
Okay, so either that or some nuts. The nuts will do that for me too.
Okay, so you know your body. This is where practice comes in. You've figured it out. Yeah, so you can, nuts. So that's a sign you might be a little bit sensitive to nuts, by the way. If you're responding that quickly to nuts, you might be sensitive to them.
Okay.
And it might change depending on the nut. So just be aware if you're that hungry and nuts are equal to a cracker in terms of response, be careful. Your body's responding super quick to those.
Okay.
So the whole 12 nuts might be too much for you. I mean, you have to listen to the response.
I would just take one or two. I would do it slowly and see how
listen,
I feel.
Exactly. Yeah. Or cracker. If you don't like gluten, do rice. If you don't, figure it out. Your body is I cannot tell you what your body needs.
Okay.
No, the theme hasn't changed here, has it?
No, it hasn't changed. It's because no starch, and I thought a cracker was starch, but it's okay.
Well, doesn't that relative to the body's need?
Yeah, exactly.
I would agree. In general, people are still super inflamed. There's lag to that HCG and the protocol to where they shouldn't need a cracker. But you never know. Some people don't listen to the body. They don't prepare, and they get super, 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 super hungry, and they don't understand that that piece of jerky is not going to be sufficient. You're going to end up eating the entire bag of jerky when you could have just had a single cracker.
I gotcha. Okay.
So, yeah, that's the downside of people who completely eliminate a starch, is they are stuck with binging because they're not willing, out of emotional fear, to listen to the body, because there's the religion of food backing it. This would be like you saying, I'm a vegan, I'm not allowed chicken, even though I'm like, oh my God, I'm fantasizing about that rotisserie chicken.
Yeah.
It's like your body's telling you something. So anyways, give yourself, those are like break glass and emergency.
Yeah, they're great to have on a plane and stuff when you get really hungry. Those little wassas, I love those things. You have a half a wassa and you're fine.
Yeah, and ideally you don't get that hungry. You're prepared. Ideally you don't let that happen. That is, in my own story, hunger, that severe hunger to me was it wasn't good, because my brain, gives you the impulse to eat too much. And if I had eaten beyond that signal of satiation, going into satiation, beyond satiation into fullness, that created massive, massive panic attacks.
Yeah.
So I knew moving forward that my safe zone was the hunger scale, because it kept me safe from a severe hunger and severe fullness. So I think moving forward, you said that to the beginning, if I get too hungry, that's not good.
No, and I, I know my body. Like, I know when I get hungry, and like the afternoon, I have to know at 5, between 4 and 6, like I have food if I get hungry. Because generally, I do get hungry at that time. Yeah.
And you know your body at this point enough to know how quickly that hunger comes on. Yeah. And just know it's going to change. What you learned on the protocol isn't accurate to reality.
Yeah, okay.
Because you're not being exposed to fats and how fats affect the rhythms of your hormones.
Yeah.
Which is a huge dampener. Fat is a fabulous dampener to the system. Yeah. Do you know what a dampener is?
Yeah.
It's a muzzle. It just makes everything goopy and gloppy and slows everything down. So, I like to think of the protocol, what you've done is you've taken your view, which was very complex and wide, and it filters out a ton of complexity, and then it's opening it up. So you're looking at the micro numbers. You're like opening up your view. You're about to do this.
Yeah.
So now, moving forward, it's not going to seem as clear. So you really have to trust the kinesthetic sense of your body, which you should feel like at this point, because you've micromanaged it through the protocol, you're a freaking expert.
Yeah.
That's the confidence that comes from the practice, the protocol, and going back to reality.
Yeah, and I think reality now, you know in the protocol when you're hungry, but now to test it in the real world. I mean, that's where I guess I'm like, woohoo.
Oh, it's so easy. I mean, don't you feel that way now? Like, oh, this is going to be so easy. Yeah, as long as you're aware of what's difficult, you're gonna do so great. And this
If I get nervous, I can always email you. Well, I'm nervous.
yeah, but that nervousness is normal, and it's usually relative to fear of gaining fat, which goes back to your dysfunction in your thinking.
Yeah.
You have to make an agreement with your body right now that you're going to allow it to do what it needs to do to be safe and healthy.
Okay.
So if you're listening to your body and you feel like you're accurate and you're living in a way that you feel is rewarding for you, that is functional reward, you need to shake hands with your body and say and agree that you will be okay with how it's responding. So if it tells you it needs 5 more pounds of fat for your body to be healthy, you need to agree in advance that that's okay.
And it also might let more go. I don't know what it's going to do.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, you need to come to an agreement right now that you are okay with
whatever it does. But
yes.
What also, if more sheds off of me, is that bad? No, it does what it wants.
I know you heard your question. What do you think my answer would be?
No, because when I read that pounds and inches, and it says just be so careful because it messes up your hormonal system.
Yes, you just need to understand where that was coming from. Dr. Simeons didn't understand. He couldn't have understood the whole picture because they didn't have the science to really understand. Okay. He didn't realize fat was an organ. He had no idea that there were hormones coming out of the fat. He just knew that somehow, somewhere, the brain might be controlling it. Anyhow, the only thing they had to establish an idea of equilibrium was if your body was stable, which was not correct. Most people lose fat in the transition. They gain fluid. So if you only use the scale, you're perceiving equilibrium. It's really not. It's still changing.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So what we need to use as a form of equilibrium is the best thing you can do is listen to your body and adapt and adjust.
Yeah.
If you are eating to hunger and you are holding yourself accountable in that you're not starving, right? And you're not over consuming, you are doing the best you possibly can. You are doing the best you can to create equilibrium. Looking at an external measure of your gravity's pull to the earth is totally insufficient. It is not a good picture.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's why I say ignore your weight. It is not accurate at all. It isn't. It's like if you micromanage your scale, you are more likely to gain.
Yeah. No, I don't want to.
Yeah.
I was just.
Yeah.
I completely understand. I haven't been on the scale, nor do I want to. I mean, it's easier for me to go by my clothes, but.
Yeah, I do have a video. I do have a video of me on a dry erase board describing this hormonally. I recorded it like 2 years ago. It's in there. Where I actually am on the dry erase board showing the pictures hormonally, that the goal is that as your body's tipping, you're maintaining what you're doing with the body and letting those other systems acclimate.
I got you. Okay.
And then once this is over and you are completely eating functionally, if you want, go get your hormones checked and see if there's anything else you need. You might need bioidenticals. Chances are you're not, but you might.
He was amazed. He tested me last week on a Vega machine from where I was before I started this to, he said it was just miraculous. So I'm going to give him your book when I go back out to see him. But
awesome.
He said it was unbelievable.
Well, you're going to want to get retested under the realistic environment of a real life.
Oh, I'm going to.
Yeah.
He tests me all the time.
And see that how the comparison is. For sure.
I'm also interested. When I was reading about what you said about the basal whatever it's called. That's going to be. I want to see because I think mine's like 1340 now, and it's gone up since I started. It was interesting.
Well, what we saw metabolically is that it does go down because your body isn't working as hard. You're losing weight, which removes the need for fuel. I mean, you're not working as hard. The body, however, each week after the very low cal, it goes up dramatically, and it will finish off per pound. And I do the math in the book. So if the doctor wants to see the math, it's in the book. Your metabolic rate is going to be much higher.
Yeah. And then it stays there?
It's going to do what life does. So I can't sit here and go, yeah, it's linear. You're a rock. It's going to stay there forever. No.
It'll go up and down, up and down.
It's going to change depending on where the moon's at. It's going to change depending on your activity level. The temperature change is going to change it. So this summer when you're in the sun, it's going to be unique to when you're now in the winter acclimation. So it's like, my answer is no, it's not going to stay the same.
And
don't worry about it. Your body knows what it's doing. And it's so ridiculous for any of us to out here think we really know what's going on, because it's never, most of the science you see and all of the research you hear is a linear picture. It's like a Polaroid picture.
It's not. That's why
completely,
we have so many hormones.
You got it. And none of it ever takes into account how you perceive things, which completely change brain chemistry. Your perception of stress completely changes how your brain and body reacts to whatever stimulus you're using.
And that's why I love that this is balancing, this phase is balancing your hormones, doing it.
Totally. Well, and you've changed your perception around food, which completely reduces your sensitivity to it.
Yeah.
If you change your perception around food and you don't have shame, guilt, or fear, your entire brain and body responds differently.
Now I just have to trust it.
Yes, and this is where the practice came in handy.
Yeah.
You trust it. You did the front end work. Now you're going to have to give yourself the leniency after weight loss. That's hard. A lot of people, because you wanted that excessive weight that you gained hormonally and all that crap gone legitimately. Now, have you attached anything emotionally to that loss? Because the goal is that you didn't. That way, when I say you need to shake your body's hand in agreement that if it gains, it's okay.
Yeah.
You're trusting that it knows what it's doing, and it might not be what your religion says it should be.
I agree.
So you have to be willing to know the truth of the body. So that is our goal, I think, in this. If I were to give you a very specific goal, outside of everything else that I've told you, our goal is that you want to stay to the integrity of where you're at, right? How well you know your body. You're going to stay to that integrity. You're going to do the best you can with what you know about your body right now. Right?
Yeah.
That's the best you can do, is trust that you understand your body's reaction to food and listen to it and go with it as a guide. Your body's going to guide you. And then you want to be open-minded enough to think, where is my body happiest under that environment? Because if you're eating to hunger and you're holding yourself accountable to that, and you're eating foods that you feel are realistic for you and that don't cause damage to your body, that you can tell, don't you agree you need to find out what the truth of that is? Because isn't that realistic?
No, that's completely. And it's funny because like so much of it I know that when my body I add extra fat from eating not consciously, it hates it because then it doesn't feel good. It goes off kilter. I mean,
so to hold yourself accountable.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's what I'm saying. It's just blatantly obvious.
I know. It is blatantly obvious to people who've actually done the practice. So, and it gets more obvious as you practice. And don't expect it to be perfect. Do not expect your ability to be perfect. You're not going to be my best patient ever. Don't even try.
I don't want to be.
I know that, but I'm just speaking to the old, I'm a perfectionist. I'm going to be the best. This is going to be perfect.
I just want to feel good.
Get rid of
I
that.
have to feel good. I like my energy. I'm happy, feeling good.
Yeah, so with that said, I'm going to repeat. If you are eating and you are being true to your integrity around just staying accountable and giving yourself the lenience to eat what's realistic for you, right? There's a balance between what's realistic and the integrity of your body.
Yeah.
If you find that balance, whatever happens, so be it. Because it is
Yeah.
the truth of what you're willing to do. If you're willing to do that, what is the truth of your body? What happens if your body says, I'm going to gain 10 pounds? Don't you have to accept this is what you're willing to do? Here is the outcome that is the truth of what I'm willing
Yeah.
to do.
You have to, I mean, I have to be.